Last time out in Assetto Corsa Competizione on Low Fuel Motorsport, I was, at long last, a race winner. And today, I've got a real opportunity to keep that hot streak going. I'm going to be starting from P4 on the grid for this Go Setups GT3 Sprint race at Zolder, and I'm only a few tenths off pole position. Now, it took me 157 attempts to get my first LFM ACC race win. It couldn't happen again, could it? Here we go then, 25 minutes at Zolder is underway, and make no mistake about it, I am very much in contention for the race win here. There are just a few tenths separating the top 5 drivers. Chris Stoney alongside me in the Audi is one of them. I thought I may just be able to sneak up the inside into T2 there, but I wasn't quite close enough. However, I have maintained my starting position at P4, but I might not have it for long because there was contact from behind. I'm sent out to the grass and now I can't see a thing. Where is the track? Oh, never mind the track. I've just found the wall.
Box, we have to repair the car.
Honestly, at the time, I had no idea at all what hit me. However, the replay shows it's that purple Audi behind me. Well, yes, Lotskem is the driver. Now, he spots a gap on the inside. There's more than enough room for him to get through there. However, the momentum is pulling him towards the outside. He runs right into the back of me and sends me out into the grass. And frustratingly, I ended up with that advertising boarding right across my windscreen. I couldn't see where I was going. And as a result, I ended up unwittingly driving head first into a concrete wall. Not the return that I had in mind. Yeah, only on CR Sim Racing could I go from a triumphant race win to driving blindly into a wall. So I'm back to give it another try, and I've matched my qualifying performance once again starting from P4, but look how close it is up there. I'm just 1/10 off pole position. And even more astonishingly, the two drivers on the front row have posted identical lap times. So once again, I find myself in real contention for a race win here, but so do at least 3 other drivers. This could be epic. Oh, and I've got a much better launch than the 2 drivers on the front row. Sadly though, I don't think there's going to be a way through, so I'm going to have to back out into turn 1. There's a little bit of contact, and I just caught a glimpse in my rear view mirror of a black Aston Martin sideways. That must have been Geoffrey Cockebob, who started alongside me on the second row, which of course meant that he was on my inside for T1. Now, I tried to leave him enough room. We'll have to go back and check out the replay to see if I actually managed to do that, but there was certainly contact in there as it became incredibly tight. Thankfully though, Cockebob managed to avoid spinning. He actually did really well to hold on to it. It's cost him a few positions. He's dropped down to P7. Meanwhile, I've managed to maintain my starting position of P4. Yes, I got past Geoffrey Cockebob in T1, but I quickly surrendered the place to Flo Scub. Scub started P5 on the grid, and given that he tucked it up the inside into T1, I suspect that might be the reason why there was contact between me and Cockebob. We'll get the definitive answer when we check out the replay very shortly, but for now, I am looking good in P4. Scub right in front, Daniel Merchant right behind. Okay, let's take another look at the start. Keep your eye on that pink Lamborghini. Flo Scub gets a great launch. He immediately tries to squeeze up the inside of Cockebob, and yeah, sure enough, that's why there was contact. Cockebob just getting squeezed out in between the 2 Lamborghinis of myself and Scub. On board with Cockebob now. We can see the pink Lambo in his mirror moving up the inside, and as we get into T1, he just gets squeezed. There's the contact. He sideways does really well to save it there, but it costs him several positions. Right, back to the live action at the end of lap 2, and it looks like Nate Shanholtz is beginning to make a break for it out front. He's more than 1 second clear of Chris Stoney, the pole position driver. Now, I know Stoney well from race 1. We were alongside each other on the grid. We had near identical lap times then. We've got near identical lap times now. So it's vital that I stick with this leading 3, but we've also got to keep one eye on what's going on behind. I've just switched the TV cam on because I am being pursued by Daniel Merchant. Now, many of you will know that Daniel Merchant is another YouTuber. He's also a higher rated and faster ACC driver than I am, so I'm going to have my work cut out to stay in front of him here. He started P6 on the grid. Now, at the end of the previous lap, he was just over 1 second behind me. However, that gap now is down to 0.7 of a second, so he is gaining. Meanwhile, in front, I'm getting a little concerned that the leading duo may be making a break for it. It doesn't look like Scub has got the pace to stick with them. Equally, it looks like I'm struggling to find the pace to stick with Scub. However, I do get a little bit closer through that chicane. Meanwhile, behind me, there was a mistake from Merchant. He has surrendered a position to Joffrey Cockerbob. And that gives me some welcome breathing room behind. It's now 1.4 seconds back to Cockerbob in 5th position, and 1.9 seconds back to Daniel Merchant now. And yeah, it's always a relief to see a driver behind you make a mistake after he's been closing in so rapidly. The McLaren just running in a little bit too hot into that chicane. He gets a bit squirrely on exit and he loses a bunch of time. Right, we're jumping forward now to lap 5, and as you can see from the leaderboard, Cockerbob is closing in fast. He was 1.5 seconds behind. That gap now is just half a second. So that black Aston Martin is going to be breathing down my neck very, very shortly. We'll switch the TV cam back on so we can get a view of the action from Cockerbob's on board. And as close as he is to me, I am equally close now to the pink Lamborghini of Scub in front. Oh, I get a little bit sideways exiting that chicane though. That won't do me any favours. Just a little bit over-enthusiastic on the gas there. It's given Scub a couple of tenths advantage, and it has also invited Cockerbob to get closer than he has ever been. Round the hairpin now. Look how tight it is. Just 0.4 of a second to Flo Scub in front. Just 0.3 of a second to Joffrey Cockerbob behind. And realistically, it's looking like I might be in a battle for a podium rather than a race win here, because the leader, Nate Schanholz, is now 5 seconds in front. And Chris Stoney in second place is 2.5 seconds clear. So yeah, this is looking like a fight for 3rd position now. Oh, and a mistake into T1 from me. I just turned in a little bit too early then. Took far more of the curb than I was planning to. But I am rattled here now. I missed the apex into turn 2. I'm all over the place. I suspect that Cockerbob is smelling blood here. I'm just about keeping myself in front of him, but he couldn't be closer now as we come through this right-hander. Right, let's jump forward now to the end of this 6th lap, and we've still got 3rd, 4th and 5th within 1 second of each other coming through the final chicane. Cockerbob still putting me under all kinds of pressure, and this is where I need to call on the experience gained in that previous race at Alton Park last week. I coped with the pressure admirably then out in front. I need to do the same again, but it's not quite happening. Another mistake through T1. A lap ago I turned in too tight. This time I was too loose. Right, what's the gap back to Cockerbob now then? 0.2 of a second. Oh, this is getting tight. Right, once again we're going to jump forward, this time to the end of the 7th lap. You can see there is no let up from Cockerbob behind, and still the 3 of us within 1 second of each other. And honestly, I feel like I'm beginning to push a little bit beyond my limit. I'm having to punch above my weight here. It's a far higher strength of field than I'm used to. I'm running car number 17, so LFM doesn't expect me to even finish in the top 15, never mind battle for a podium. But battling for a podium is exactly what I'm doing now. However, I'm looking increasingly ragged, sideways coming out of turn 2. This is the moment that Cockerbob makes his move. There's nothing I can do about it. I lost grip coming out of the corner, I lost speed, and that Aston Martin breezes up the inside. So Joffrey Cockerbob up into 4th position. I'm demoted down to 5th, and do you know who's rubbing his hands with glee? Flo Scub, because he is now 1 second clear in 3rd position. And here's another look at Cockerbob's overtake, and to be honest, it was coming, wasn't it? I was a little bit ragged on each of the previous 2 laps. The mistake was inevitable, and ultimately I've had to surrender 4th position to the Aston Martin driver. But yeah, as I said just a moment ago, maybe I was being a little bit too ambitious to think that I was in with a shout of the race win here. Given the strength of field for this one, even a top 5 would be a fantastic result. But yeah, I'm clearly losing ground on this pack in front now. The pair of them nearly 2 seconds ahead. Well, I think the only thing I can hope for is that the pair of them slow each other down while fighting for that 3rd position. So I'll switch the TV cam back on, because you can see how close they are now. Cockerbob all over the rear of that pink Lamborghini. Meanwhile, speaking of close, look in the rear view mirror, because Renault Tretaine is now within 0.7 of a second of me. Meanwhile in front, Kokomob is making his move. It looked like Scum clipped the gravel coming out of the previous corner. He immediately went defensive, but there was nothing he could do to stop the Aston Martin. However, Kokomob ran in too hot. Flow Scum immediately fights back. They're side by side going up over the brow of the hill. Scum going to have the inside line for this chicane. Oh, look how tight it is. Kokomob forced out over the curb somehow, though he's managed to hold on to the position, and I have closed right in. I am now just 0.3 of a second behind Scum. Well, half a lap ago I thought my podium hopes were over, but all of a sudden I am right back in the thick of this battle for third position. And look who else is involved. Renault Trotane, he is closer now than he has ever been. This is a four-way shootout for the final podium position. Has Scub got anything up his sleeve to try and challenge Kokomob? It doesn't look like it. In fact, he's too hot into the final chicane. This might be an opportunity for me. I adjust my line, take a tighter exit. We're now side by side, coming down the start-finish straight. Well, I'm going to be stuck on the outside into T1, so I won't get the job done here, but I may be able to tuck it up the inside and do it on exit instead. I am tying Scub up in knots here, but is it enough? Because once again, I'm stuck on the outside. And actually, this could put me in real danger because it'll leave a gap for Renault Trotane. So immediately I move to the inside. I just want to try and close off any possible gap that Trotane might see. Oh, this is incredibly intense racing. We're at 2/3 race distance. We've still got 8 minutes of this to go. Watch Trotane in the rearview mirror. He's coming in fast. Well, I had to abort the corner then. If I'd held onto my line, I would have certainly been taken out. Trotane makes the pass, but that had to be a track cut. Surely, let's check out the replay. Trotane in the light blue Lamborghini. Oh, he's just braked too late. I think, to be fair to him, he was just trying to avoid running into the back of me rather than making an overtake. But yeah, a definite track cut. Surely he has got to give this position back. Well, unfortunately, it doesn't look like he's going to. Trotane has settled into 5th position, which means now I find myself out of the top 5. And not only that, it has cost me considerable time. Look in the rearview mirror, Daniel Merchant is right back on my tail, just 0.4 of a second back. And I've got to admit, I'm feeling more than a little hard done by that I'm no longer in the top 5. It wasn't a fair overtake from Trotane, and it looks like if I want that position back, I'm going to have to do it the hard way. So it may be time to take the gloves off here. Earlier in the race, I put Scub under an immense amount of pressure coming through this final chicane, so I'm going to try and do exactly the same again, get as close as I possibly can. I give him a little nudge just to let him know I'm there, but also to position me on the inside for the upcoming first corner. This is the line I would have preferred to have when challenging Scub earlier in the race, but it's got me to T1 in front of Trotane. Now I switch to the inside line for T2. I'm going to close off any possible opportunity he's got to fight back, and I've done it. I have snatched that 5th position back. So yeah, certainly a little bit more aggressive than I would normally be in making an overtake, but I felt it was justified given the nature of Trotane's overtake on me on the previous lap. Right, let's go back and check out a replay. And I knew I was going to have to be forceful if I was going to get this 5th position back, so I apply as much pressure as I possibly can going through that final chicane. And I ended up getting so close that I gave him a little tap. That may have encouraged him to move over to the right-hand side of the track. That opened up the gap I needed, and I forced my way through before closing the line off into T2. So yeah, like I said, a little bit more forceful than I would normally like to be when making an overtake, but I felt it was justified on this occasion to snatch my 5th position back. Right, returning to the live action on the very last lap. I'm still in P5, but I've not been able to make a break for it. Trotane still just 0.5 of a second back. However, I have kept myself just far enough ahead to avoid having to worry about another Trotane attack. Meanwhile, in front, Flo Scub is now 2.5 seconds clear, and the podium is even further away. Geoffrey Kokomob in 3rd, he's more than 3 seconds down the road now. But honestly, a top 5 finish here will be every bit as good as my race win last week. Given the strength of field here, the fact that I'm car number 17, Low Fuel Motorsport didn't even expect me to finish in the top 15 here, let alone the top 5. So this has got to be considered a success, and it's looking more and more likely now because Trotane is dropping back. That gap now 1 second. And that is as big as it's ever been since we were battling a few laps ago. So we're only one chicane from home now in a top 5 finish. Let's make sure I don't make any careless mistakes through this final turn. Meanwhile in front, Scub is not making life easy for Cockerbob coming through this final section. He's just 0.3 of a second behind as they cross the line. And the checkered flag is out for me as well. I take a truly satisfying P5. Here are the classified results then. My fastest lap in the race, a 1:29.3. That's 3/10 slower than the 1:29 flat I did in qualifying. So yeah, I just didn't quite have the race pace to match my qualifying pace here. And as a result, I wasn't able to put myself in contention for the race win or a podium. But I've got to be happy with the top 5. I was punching well above my weight here at Zolder. So yeah, I'm in good form on ACC at the moment. If you haven't caught my race from Alton Park yet, you can check it out on screen now. I had to deal with some crazy pressure to get the win in that one. Thank you ever so much for watching.